Hello again, and it's time for another project. Today we're going to do some scroll saw work on this H. Botas pattern. Went on his site and he's a fantastic scroll saw designer. So I picked this one out. Don't know why, it's not my normal style, but I like the look of this one. It's something a bit different for me. And it's only going to test me today with all these straight lines to cut out. Now the idea is to cut out all the black sections on 3.6mm plywood. That is the thinner stuff underneath. So we will attach that to that, cut out all the black sections. Once that's done, we'll either stain it or paint it white, and then we'll simply just attach it to a 12mm backer. And I've already just cut this out, and I got a mouse sander and just chafed those edges off slightly, took the edge off. So that will be the backer, and this will basically just stick on top as it is with stain or paint. We'll see how we go on with that, but before that we can simply just do away with the backer. That basically is finished apart from the staining side of things, so we can put that to one side and focus on this section here. I'm able to go on with 5.5mm, but we'll stick with the 3.6mm plywood and see how we get on. So we're going to attach that to that simply by lining the full piece with painter's tape, and then we'll use some spray glue. There might just be enough left in there to spray that and simply stick that down. Once that's nicely stuck in place, we will need to get a drill and drill a little pilot hole into every one of these black sections around here, also these separate bits here, and that just allows us to feed our blade through, and then we can start cutting these sections out, and hopefully it'll all stay together. So we'll tape it down, glue it, put the tape down, should I say, glue it, do our pilot holes, and then we'll come back and look at the blade we're going to use. Right, so we stuck our template down with the painter's tape and the glue. We stuck it down on top, no problem whatsoever, and we've drilled all our little pilot holes into every section. Now personally myself, I like to, bigger that I can drill that hole, the easier it is for me to feed my blade through. And we've gone around and drilled hopefully every section. You will find, well, I normally find I always tend to miss one anyway. And on the back, quick sanding down, they're all good to go. And you could cut these off here if you wanted to. Personally, so I don't really have any problem with leaving that on till the end. So right, now we're ready to cut out. For me personally, I like to use what they call spiral blades. I can just find one here. The good thing about spiral blades, the teeth are spiraled the full length, so they will cut in any direction. So we could feed this through the hole, set it up on the saw, and you just cut that, hopefully, like so. And then onto the next hole, and onto the next hole. They're not for everybody, and they certainly don't work for everybody. The other more common blade is what they call a pin blade. It has a pin at both ends, and they're for your more basic saws, and then it's just clamp on the top and bottom. Remember, if your blades being straight, pinless or spiral, they want to feel smooth on the way down, rough on the way up. Now you would get away with this if you drilled yourself a bigger hole, because those pins are in the way. We're not going to fit in there, and you definitely won't be able to get it into these smaller holes. So no pin blades on this one, should I say. And the other option is pinless blades. These are really thin, there's nothing on there at all, and they will be clamp on to the more expensive swords, should I say, and they will fit in there no problem, cutting those out and also into these smaller sections. But with the straight blades, they'll only cut as you're going into the blade, if that makes sense. So if you would start off here, you would cut down there, and then you'd have to turn that piece completely to cut down there, and then turn it completely again to cut up the other side, unless obviously you fed it all the way back and started again from the beginning. So there's a lot of turning and twisting with your straight blades, They're not for me personally, but some guys out there, they work fantastic. So I'm going to go for good old Pegas number 5 spiral blade. Now my saw only takes pin blades, so I have to get these adapter clamps, and they're a bit of a pain, especially on something like this. You've got to put your blade in, feed it through the wood, Allen key, tighten it up, same underneath, and then fiddle about and try and fit it onto your saw and stuff. So they're a bit of a pain, but one day we'll get one that just takes pinless blades and they'll just clamp straight on. But for now, Pegas number 5 spiral. We'll set it up into one of these holes and start cutting this one out. Right, so we've fed our Pegas number 5 spiral blade through one of the pilot holes, remember, that we've drilled. On these kind of projects, it's always better to start with the inner sections first, and that just have a bit more support with these surrounding areas, and then we can take our time and do all the lines. Now, but we will speed things up obviously, but for now we'll do all these little smaller sections. We've got the blade in, got a nice ping ping sound, we've took the tension up. Remember, smooth on the way down, rough on the way up. Now these spiral blades, they're not for everybody. If you prefer to use a straight pinless blade, by all means you use one of those. Okay, let's start cutting this one out. Right, you might have just noticed on that one, the good thing with spiral blades, and I don't see why you can't do it with straight blades, but definitely with spiral blades, if your line's not quite perfect and you're left with a little lumpy bit sticking out where you've started the cut, I basically use mine as a planer, and you can just go back and forwards with a blade like so, and just nibble at it, and eventually you'll get it to where you want it. So I'll just show you a little bit on here. It might be a bit noisy with the machine, but we'll have a go for it. And you can see and along there like so. So you basically just nibble at it and you get it somewhere near. They don't have to be perfect, does it? Okay, let's move on to the next fold. Right, we're on the last piece. I must admit, it's been a slow process, and I've probably managed about 4, 5, 6 of these a day. Put it to one side and then come back another day. No need to do it all in one. I have found with these kind of projects, the length of the straight cut, with a spiral blade especially, is to maybe start at the halfway mark, and I've cut down, gone up the other side, and then we cut that section off basically, and then spin it round and then come back in from the opposite side, if that makes sense. It's just better than having to lean over and do a straight cut the full length of this. So I've gone down here so far, we've gone down there and we've come up here, so we'll make it up to that hole, cut it off, and then we'll turn it round, do the other section, and that will be it for the cutting. Right, so we've made it all the way round with that Pegas number 5 spiral blade, and it's more or less somewhere near. They're not perfect straight lines, but to be honest, when I checked the template out, they weren't perfectly straight on the template either. So I don't know if this was actually a photograph of a finished project, if that makes sense, but it's certainly near enough for what we need. Only downside with these spiral blades, you do get a lot of little fluffies on the end, we call them. So as I've been going along, you can see from there, I've had sandpaper and just take those little edges off like that. I've also worked out you can get a sanding drum and literally just go across like that with a drum, and that removes them just as easy. And also, I don't use them a lot. There's little files you can get if you want to really take your time. Get a nice flat file and just get in there and just relax and take those edges off. Downside with plywood again on this 3.6 anyway, we've had a couple of chip outs, as we're going to call them. A nice big section there, look, but it's on the back of the piece. That's not going to affect us at all. So even though you have the backs, certainly won't be as nice as the front. So we have a quick tidy up with this one, and then I pull the tape off. We've got all this tape off. We'll take our time with this. We certainly don't want to go crazy at this stage and just go and break something. So nice and steady. It should come off fairly easy, like so. We'll just take our time and peel that off. So when I come back, this will be tied up, cleaned up, and then we're looking to what we're going to do regarding painting or staining or whatever. So okay, I'll tidy it all up, and then when we come back, we'll look at the next stage. Right, that's all nicely cleaned up now. In the end, I just got some sandpaper, made a nice little loose tube like so, and that was just enough to slide down in between, and it's just to say took those sharp edges off. And obviously we've done exactly the same on the back, and so that's all nicely tidied up now. Let's not forget in the backer, which we cut off previously, and I've also rounded off the edges on that and just so took those corners off, and that's 12mm plywood for the backer and 3.6mm for the top section itself. And hopefully when it's all nicely painted, stained, whatever we're going to do, that will sit on there like so. Now I've had a little debate about it, and normally I would put a nice dark teak on the back and maybe a light teak for the top section, and that would be more or less heading towards the finishing line. But I just don't know if I'm going to get the right effect I'm looking for, so I'm going to paint this one. Now you could spray that, and I have black spray, white spray, line around. I just prefer to use the brush and paint. So I'll go indoors where it's nice and warm, and we're just going to use a nice black painter's touch for the back section and a white painter's touch for the top section. And I will dilute the top first layer first on the white, just a bit, dab a little water, tip it on the brush inside every so often, just so we get all those side walls. Remember, we want to get doing all inside those. Ideally, if we had a nice big tray, we could just dip the full thing in, pull it out, and we're good. But it's not going to work that way, is it? So we'll paint the top section white, bottom section black. Okay, we'll come back when it's all been nicely painted. Right, there's our two sections nicely painted up. Just painter's touch paint. I've used those on a lot of my projects, indoor and outdoor. Now, I did 2 coats for the black, and I must have gone about 3 coats for the white. I like to just put a bit of water with the first one, just literally a little dab on the paintbrush, and it just helps to float about. Remember, on this one, we've had all those side walls to paint as well. So put it on a flat piece, and literally went inside with a brush. It doesn't take too long to do, and it dries in minutes. By the time you've got to one end, you come towards the finish, it's literally dry, and you can start again and go over the old piece. And there's the back section, rough and ready. We're not overly concerned about that. And the good thing about it with this plywood, if you wanted to, you can still see the nice grain effect underneath there, should you want to keep it like that. But for me, you know it's coming. Even though they are gloss paints, just not quite shiny enough for me. So I'm going to spray more so the bottom section with anything we can find. Be a 151 today. I think I've used, well, I know I've used Paint Factory gloss in the past, and there'll be another one kicking about somewhere in this mess of a shed. So I'm going to spray 2 or 3 coats on this, literally just to make it more shinier. To me, it's like the end of the project and we finish. But you could leave that like that, no problem. And I will also spray a little bit on the top. So we'll just start off just like so. This dries just as quick. Ideally, you want to be outside on a nice summer's day. It's a bit fresh today, so I'll pop the little litre on down in the corner there, and not forgetting, do all the side bits. And once that's done, we do exactly the same with the top of there. Just be careful with your whites. They do say too much lacquer or varnish on a white could cause it to yellow in time. It's not something I've had an issue with, but I have heard mention in certain groups about spraying too much on a white colouring. Right, we'll let that dry, come back, cover them all, and then we're down to just basically just gluing these 2 bits together. Right, we've come inside just to glue these 2 pieces together. You can see with that varnish there, we've got a nice shine on there. And for me personally, it just finishes it off. Even though we won't see a lot of this due to the template that's going to go on top. And we've also sprayed a bit on the white, but you won't notice that so much. So now the idea is just to basically glue this down on top of there. I've just been down and purchased a 151 hard as nails super glue. I have no idea how this even works. It should be a simple case of going around and dab 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 all the way around, missing maybe an inch or 2, and we'll fill this full piece up the best we can, and then literally just flick it over, and hopefully we can glue it in place. Right, I'll pop the glue on off camera, and then when we come back we can put it back onto the backer section, and then we'll be heading towards the finishing line. Right, I think we've more or less got them all, so hopefully just a case of sticking this down. A lot of that seems to have soaken into the ply, so I've not used this glue before. It's not something I've normally played with, but hopefully to stick it down. I'm going to pop this on here, somewhere in there, and I'm just going to spin it round for my benefit and get it somewhere where we need it. There, there, there. Get it all lined up best we can. Yep, that looks about near enough for me. So we'll keep it that way just so we can fit it in the camera. And just simple case of pressing that down. Now we're going to put a board on this and put a bit of weight on for an hour or so. It just say it dries, well, 60 seconds, but leave it 24 hours to fully cure. But we will see how we get on. Okay, we'll come back when we're down in the shed, and hopefully this little project will be finished. Right, that's it. This little project is finished. So we stuck it all down. You get a better view when you look at it straight on, and that's all stuck down nicely. So the top section was cut with 3.6mm plywood, and the backer was 12mm plywood, and we cut it out with the Pegas number 5 spiral blade. They're my choice of blades. The T-spiral, the full length of the blade, and obviously you can cut in any direction. I did find straight lines on a spiral can be a bit difficult, but I persevered, and there was a little bit of sanding to do afterwards just to line things up, but we got away with that. But any straight blade would cut this one no problem. Then we painted it with painter's touch paints, the black and the white, 2 coats of each, because I'm really nice. And then for me personally, I just sprayed a bit of clear lacquer on, just give it that shine, and for me it just finishes the project off. And then we stuck both pieces down with a 151 super glue. Literally just went for that this morning, first time I've used it, and that's done the job, and everything's nice and solid. And the size of the piece itself, it's roughly 16 inches. We'll do the backer board. That's 16 inches by 12.5 inches across. And that's it. Nice little fun project. It's a H-Botus pattern. I will put a link into his Facebook page. He designs all these kind of scroll saw patterns and stuff. So, and that's it. Been a bit different for me, this one. Not normally kind of stuff I would do. I did find it was easy just to do maybe 4 or 5 lines, and I go off and come back another day and go for a few more. And for hanging purposes, a nice simple hook. And for this one, we painted the back quickly while we had the paint out. And that's it. This little project is finished. So it's boat on the water, cut out with a Pegas spiral blade on 3.6mm plywood. Thank you very much for watching.